The people that have been affected by this are everybody. Middle-income people, blue-collared people, white-collared people, teachers, veterans are a huge source, white, black, any type of person of color out there that is, in this country is being affected by this. It's not just one little element. The people that have a lot of money are able to navigate easier out of this, but it's everybody. It's your teachers. We've had, you name it, we've had every single person you can imagine under the sun that has been affected by this.
So what happened, we could obviously start looking at the banks were loaning money at an exponential rate. We can go into the credit underwriting and stuff like that. But ultimately what happened is the market started to go down. And when the market started to go down, people started losing their jobs. Interest rates started going up and the adjustable rate mortgages were no longer affordable. They had hardships. And when that happens, when you have a hardship, usually you don't have a bunch of money saved up. A lot of people, I think it's 83% of Americans have less than $1,000 in their bank account or in their savings account. So there was nothing to fall back on. We were kind of riding the high of a bull market, and when it tanked, a lot of people lost their house.
Back during the crash in 08 and 09, companies, banks that were holding all of these mortgages weren't set up to handle the amount of foreclosures that were coming through. So really what's happened is just a product of the system that was created. They're about one thing, at the single bottom line, making money on it. And they don't attach the human element to it that is very, very important that we all miss.
No one really sets up for the problems. They always set up for the good times. The banks are there to write loans to people, to issue credit, to allow people to partake in the American dream, to own a home. And when those mortgages went into default, it was just like stacks and stacks and stacks of paper landing on their desk, and they're like, what do we do with this? They weren't set up to handle it.
You see, because what happens is if a big investment company has 10,000 loans, what they're going to do is they're going to look at the higher valued loans. So naturally, if you're a company that's managing for that single bottom line, you're going to say, let's just work on the cream of the crop stuff, the high value stuff, and let's not worry about this other stuff. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of trade those off and package those up and sell them off. The problem is they're forgetting that there are human beings on the end of that with families that just because they can't afford a $300,000 house, they're being underserved. They're not given the same types of opportunities to be able to save their home.
We did a lot of borrower outreach where we talked to borrowers, and I've heard some of the stuff it's crazy, man. It's just, they got really mistreated. And there's something it's called emotional equity. And when you get into this, you start talking, that people have emotional equity in the house. And it's because a lot of these people, some of these houses have been passed down from generation to generation. So people get into this, they're not all bad people. A lot of people are just, they're people like you, they're people like me, they're people where, when the economy turned, they're, the people, they work in an office and they lost their job. People downsized, when the market really went bad in 2008, 9, 10, a lot of people were out of work, and it was, people were graduating college and not being able to find jobs. It was just tough. And so when you lose your income and you have to support your family, do I go to the grocery store and do I buy some food, or do I make the mortgage payment?
The hardships are mostly medical. You have deaths in the family, you have divorce, and job loss.
One of the borrowers who's out of Missouri, his kid had, I don't know if it was a terminal disease, but he was extremely, extremely sick. And I talked to him on the phone and I was like, what's going on? Why couldn't you pay your mortgage? He's like, because I spend every dime I have getting medical treatment for my son. What's sad is for one of those borrowers to be on the phone to try to work something out and to get belittled or berated or be reduced to a number.
You need to be able to come up with a solution that's going to be able to kind of move with those borrower situations and not slap them with threatening letters, but listening to that hardship on an organic level from a housing counselor's perspective, and not somebody that's just getting paid $15 an hour to do this, but actual housing counselor that can then relay that information to us. 76,000 people every month are still affected by foreclosure. That's a lot of people. We're supposed to be out of the Great Recession, as they've called it. Butterfly effect is huge. What happens is these people that leave their homes, right, there's property taxes that don't get paid. In they call them zombie homes, and it's a major big problem because what happens is when one home goes vacant, the crime rate goes up. There are a lot of signs of people doing nefarious acts at these homes. It makes the other people's homes in that neighborhood decrease in value by thousands and thousands of dollars, right? And so what's happening is it just continues to spread. Less money for the property tax, which is less money for the police, less money for the schools, public school systems. And so it creates this huge thing where one home in a neighborhood starts to become then two homes, and they kind of generally happen in an entire neighborhood. The idea in the distressed debt space is to get as much money out of that distressed asset as possible. All we did was think, can we apply a double bottom line approach to this problem? People with a lot of money have an attorney to go to. These underserved populations don't have an attorney. They don't have somebody, a fixer, to go to and say, this is how I need some help. Now, there's a huge gap where we can come in and let's put a human element to helping these people stay in their homes and offer something where people can make some money. But the biggest thing is the borrowers. That is the number one focus in our business. Without borrowers' help, you're not gonna get a deed to the home to then go back and fix it up. You're not gonna help save somebody's homes, right? So the human element is so huge, and people forget that when they're investing. What we've found is these people want to pay their mortgage. They want to contribute to society. They realize it feels good. They don't like getting letters in the mail saying, you owe us money.
It is possible to have that resolution to help somebody, looking at it from a business. You have to manage with a double bottom line. You can't just look at, I'm going in there to scalp.
And without people like ourselves, smaller type investors, these stories are never going to be heard. These stories are important not only to help save their homes, but I think to save our country, to save the middle class, the lower middle class. Because without those stories, without that heartstring being pulled and being out there as a headline, I believe that there's not going to be the kind of resources and subsidizations that we can get from governments or endowments or people like that really want to help. Without that type of story being put out there on the front page, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Even at the end, when we can't keep somebody in the house, we always look for a way to work with them, to set them up for when they leave the house. What can we do to set them up for success so that we're not just taking somebody and saying, here, you're on your own, go figure it out. That doesn't align with our mission.
The impact investing space, they've labeled it, it's been around about 11 years. And the growth that we're starting to see in the space to invest in a double bottom line, I call it, meaning yes, we need to make money, but yes, we also want to do good, is growing greatly, especially with the millennial generation coming into power. A lot of decision makers in big family offices and what have you are millennials, and they want to reallocate their investment to also being not only just financially, but also what else are they doing good? And what we've decided to do was, look, the non-for-profits are struggling to get money and resources. You have to add a financial element, a component to it. And I really believe managing with that double bottom line of impact and income, okay, you're gonna attract from a different base of people, and we're gonna really start to move and have some conversations around this situation, this type of investing.
Welcome back to Impact and Income. Today we want to talk about, hey, what's the difference between flipping a note and flipping a house? You know, a lot of times we find that when we talk to people about what we're doing, they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about flipping a note. And we want to sort of draw some parallels and really break it down to where you understand that both disciplines are very similar. Both are backed by real estate. There's just a few different nuances you need to learn.
Yeah, and a little bit about our background. We've been investing in real estate for 16 plus years.
Yeah.
Low income housing, you know, we've walked into homes where we're falling through the floor. So the pivot for us into investing in mortgage notes was not that big of a change for us. So it was kind of a really nice lower barrier of entry to get into it. And when people ask me, it's as simple as this. Look, you know, you can buy a home, you fix it, and then you sell it. You fix it and you add value when you fix it. So with mortgage notes, it's basically the same thing, but you're buying, okay, a broken mortgage, meaning that there's documents that need to be recreated, there's borrowers that need to be reached out to. It has to be cleaned up. Remember, we're cleaning up from the crisis. A lot of the mortgages that have been written are broken. Majority of our stuff is you're putting on your attorney hat, right? And you're having to clean up that. So what we're basically doing is buying a broken mortgage, fixing it, and then reselling it.
Right, so just a short, for instance, on something that one ways you would maybe fix a mortgage is we're in the process, we just purchased a loan and we already had it resold, we're about to sell it, and the person we're selling it to ran it through a severe title audit, and they came up with, hey, the property ID number, what's called the PIN number, was missing the last two. They dropped the 01 on not only every assignment of mortgage that had taken place, but on the original mortgage. So we had to go back, and it was about a 30 to 45 day process, but we had to reach out to everybody who was in chain of title on that mortgage and go back and get affidavits signed. And it's just part of it. It's not difficult. It's, you know, not labor intensive. It's just sending emails, making phone calls. But one thing to understand is if there is a problem with the mortgage, you can usually fix it. Just like if there's a problem with the house, if there's a bad roof, is a bad roof not a good thing? Yeah, it's not great, but can it be fixed? Absolutely, and the same thing goes with mortgages. Rarely do we come across something, well, to this day, knock on wood, yet we haven't come across something that couldn't been repaired or fixed.
The only problem is like we said earlier, was entrepreneurial. This is entrepreneurial. Do you think what we went through, that 45 minutes of conversations, if you weren't vested as much as you're vested into this, would you have done that? If you were just an asset manager running somebody else's portfolio, you had 1,000 notes. That's my point, is that it's not being done. So what happened with this note, for instance, was probably traded once they hit a hang up or once they hit a hurdle. They don't want to jump that hurdle. It's an issue and they trade it off. They keep forgetting. Who's on the other end of that when they keep trading it?
Borrower,
somebody's life. And so you can't just keep trading it. You can't just look at this as a financial tool, right? You have to look at it as this is a person's home, a person's livelihood. And the 45 minutes that Rick spent calling and trying to track down this correct number so we could properly move this through the system, that's what needs to be done.
So one of the parallels that we like to draw is when you buy a distressed house, you're going in, you're fixing up the house, you feel good about yourself because you're raising the value of not only that house, but the other houses around it. Fixing a note does the same thing. If you have a property where the borrowers are distressed or the taxes aren't being paid, when you can get in there and you can fix that loan, you're positively impacting the community that asset is in. And that's one of the things that it's important to understand, that you're making an impact investment when you're buying one of these assets. Yes, you're not banging hammers, but you are fixing the asset to where it is becoming a positive influence in the community.
The systemic effects that go on are huge, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much, but how communities are affected by people that don't fix those loans. Now that home is sitting there as a distressed, vacant, abandoned property. Let's say that borrower leaves. What does that do? That lowers the value average of about 45%. A distressed home is lowered in value in a community around 45% to the rest of the community. So there's systemic effects that are happening. Property taxes aren't getting paid. So it's very important that people like ourselves and other people out there take these, be very entrepreneurial and creative, recycle these mortgages again into an asset that is providing back to the community, that is providing back to the family. Now, here's the deal, and this kind of is a perfect segue, right? We know real estate backwards and forwards, how to buy an investment property backwards and forwards. Now we know mortgage notes. However, when we're buying a lot of assets, a lot of the times we take in abandoned homes. You know what that presents? Huge opportunity. There are huge opportunities to provide group homes for people, okay? There's huge opportunities to provide affordable rental. There's huge opportunities to provide financing for people that cannot get financing out there on the level, okay? Right. So when you're looking at what we're actually doing and how you're flipping a note, flipping a house, it all comes down to we're helping these people out. We're very well versed in both disciplines of being able to navigate and provide back this abandoned home back to the community in any which way possible, and getting that borrower performing again, feeling better about himself. Right. What we've found is that majority of these borrowers, they want to do the right thing. Headlines tell you these are deadbeats. They're just using the system, right? They don't want to pay. They want a free ride. I haven't talked to anybody that feels good the next morning when they're saying, I have people coming after for money. So how are these people feeling good about not paying their mortgage? Do you think that family of four people like that idea of possibly my mortgage is going to be, or my house is going to be foreclosed upon? No, so we don't want to, model stuff around those outliers, those people that are the deadbeats. And there's people that are going to use the system, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the overall impact of stuff.
Right. If you're an investor, the bottom line is if you want to make an impact, you're interested in, I think I could get into flipping notes. Go ahead, jump over to mwmfund.com, check us out, learn about investing in notes and how we can have a conversation. Maybe we can make an impact and an income together. On this episode of Impact and Income, what is impact investing and how can you get started? Welcome back to another episode of Impact and Income. I want to talk today about something, investing, and not just investing, impact investing. What is it? Let's hash this out. What is impact investing?
Well, I can tell you, it's been gaining a lot of steam, and it's been around for about 11 years. And really, in 2007, the term impact investing was coined at the Rockefeller Foundation's Bellagio Center. Now, what it basically means is you're putting a name to investments made with the intention of generating both a financial return and a socially responsible return.
So that's interesting. So you're saying that you can not only take your money and invest to make capital returns, but you can do it to make a socially responsible return. What is that, like socially responsible, what does that even mean?
Well, it means that you're managing from a double bottom line. You want to maximize profit, but you also want to maximize that decision-making process when it comes down to what should I do, which direction should I make with this borrower or investment? Is it going to positively affect the community, the person?
So is it going to do good for society?
Right.
So we can then, you're saying, we can take our money, we can invest it, we can not only make returns. How good are returns? Are we talking single digit, double digit?
Well, they've shown that, when you apply that type of socially responsible investment over something, you're getting returns of MRR, market rate return, or greater.
Wow, so we're talking high single digit, double digit returns but you're also able to do good for somebody.
Yeah, and I think it's talking a lot about right now about what's happening in the investment landscape with the generational flow of capital being transferred from baby boomers to millennials. It's like a $30 to $60 trillion transfer in wealth. And so these millennials, what we're seeing now is they're really trying to obviously make decisions when they invest on something that's going to positively affect the environment, society, people, and how they can actually maximize bottom line. So that's kind of why we're heading in that direction. On top of that, we want to do good, but we feel we're aligned really good with timing.
Yeah, I think we've really learned when we started approaching our borrowers with that mindset of how can we positively affect their lives, that we actually saw our returns start to rise. And the financial returns started going up, but also then hearing the testimonials from the borrowers when they're reaching out to us and how happy they were.
Yeah.
And to realize, wow, we're saving their home, and we have a philosophy of a roof pillow blanket.
Yep.
And that, hey, we're able to keep a roof over their heads, a pillow and a blanket there, and put some shelter there for those people and really put some stability.
Yeah,
in their
and I think
lives.
the big thing is for people that are watching this, the big thing that we're trying to overcome and really refine right now is how you measure impact. Measuring bottom line profit is simple. It's numbers. Here's your P&L reports, your profit and loss reports. How much did you make? Was that a success? Check.
Very easy. That's
Now
mathematics.
it's a lot more difficult to measure. Okay, how many jobs have you created? How many part-time jobs have you created? How many back property taxes have you paid back into communities, which affects community, school, public schools, police,
Fire,
and all that type of stuff. So what we're really putting in place is a place to measure all of this impact. So from the start, when we start to place capital into these low-income communities, we're putting on the onset, we're saying, okay, we want to track how much employment we've created by somebody going out there and cutting the lawn, right? And so we really want to be able to show and measure what we've done so we can promote our mission and actually get bigger chunks of capital, patient catalytic capital, to come back and support us a little bit on our mission.
Yeah, it's amazing when you start thinking impact, you hit that surface level of, oh, I'm saving someone's house. And then, as you said, you start diving into that secondary and tertiary level of impact that you're making, and you start looking at what you're doing in communities, the jobs and stuff like that, and you really realize, wow, if I'm not looking how to deploy my capital and investment with both impact and income, you're missing the boat. You were missing the boat.
Yeah.
You need to be focusing on impact investing.
Generally, in the situation that we're in, the investment class that we're invested in, nobody was ever taking that impact approach. So what we like to do is kind of drive that strategy of impact when it comes down to distressed debt and mortgage loans. I'm really excited about impact investing and where that strategy is actually headed in the future. So what I recommend to everybody out there is Google it. Type impact investing. There's a great book called Clean Money Revolution by Joel Solomon. Google Jed Emerson. He is a pioneer in impact investing. And the research and the reading that you'll find is very, very intriguing, that you'll start to actually realize that you can connect money and meaning, and it can work out really well for you.